listening to Turning Hard Times into Good Times with your host, Jay Taylor. If you have a question or comment about today's show, Jay would love to hear from you at 1-866-472-5790. That's 1-866-472-5790. You can also send an email to questionsfortaylor@gmail.com. That's questions, the number 4, Taylor@gmail.com. Now, back to our program.
Welcome to this special segment of Turning Hard Times into Good Times. I'm your host, Jay Taylor. We are recording this session on April 28th, 2016. I'm with Quinton Hennigh, the president and CEO of Novo Resources. It's one of my favorite stocks. In fact, it is my number one holding in my retirement account. So I can't claim to be unbiased when it comes to Novo Resources, but it is my number one holding because I believe Dr. Hennigh's search for the next Witwatersrand-like deposit is alive and well, and with it, I believe the odds favor very strong gains into the future. I want as many of my listeners and subscribers to know about Novo because it is my view that this is a company with a high probability of large-scale upside capital appreciation from its current share price, which is around 65 cents in U.S. money today. I personally have been averaging down my cost, which has been around 82 cents now, so you can see that I am underwater, so to speak, but I have great hopes given my understanding of what Dr. Hennigh and his team are doing down in northwestern Australia that gives me hope for considerable gains, especially in light of a much stronger gold market. You can purchase Novo Resources in the United States under the symbol NSRPF, as I have, or you can purchase it in Canada. Its primary market is in Canada. It trades under the symbol NVO. As I say, today it was trading at around 65 cents in U.S. money, gives it a market capital of just a little bit more than 50 million U.S. dollars. Welcome, Quinton. It's good to have you with me again.
Thanks, Jay.
I would like to begin our discussion today by asking you about your April 14th press release in which you announced that Novo Resources has signed 2 property deals along the Blue Spec Trend. You've talked a little bit about Blue Spec Trend in the past. Can you talk a bit more about this trend and how it differs from the Witwatersrand-like conglomerate mineralization that you have been planning to start mining from?
Certainly. The Blue Spec Trend is actually quite close to our conglomerate-hosted mineralization that we're targeting for this test mining that you mentioned. So the 2 names, Beatons Creek is the conglomerate-hosted material, and then Blue Spec, what we're going to talk about here, is a different trend, but it's very spatially, it's very close to what we're planning on mining. The Blue Spec deposit is it's an unusual gold antimony vein-type deposit. It's hosted by sedimentary rocks. They're slightly older than the basin that we're drilling for conglomerates or that we've drilled for conglomerates. But these sedimentary rocks appear to be quite prolific for hosting gold. I started to recognize this a couple of years ago when we did some geochem work in the region, and it became very clear that the anomalism associated with these sedimentary rocks that host Blue Spec was quite high. It got me to thinking that maybe I should take a little bit bigger view of the entire region. In other words, I started to think about the context and the meaning of this, and it dawned on me that the rocks that host Blue Spec are actually the same age as some of the rocks in the Witwatersrand Basin that host gold, namely a unit called the Central Rand Formation, the Lower Central Rand Formation. Mm-hmm. So the Blue Spec deposit, it is not a conglomerate-hosted system. There are conglomerates within the sedimentary rocks that host Blue Spec, mm-hmm. but Blue Spec appears to be a gold system. It's a vein system in which gold was remobilized, effectively reconcentrated, so taken out of the sedimentary rocks and reconcentrated in very high-grade form in veins that are now crisscrossing these sedimentary rocks. So it makes for a very interesting story, and it's caused me to really think about the geology and the meaning of this. In terms of timing, like I said, the host rocks that host Blue Spec are very similar in age to some of the same rocks that we see in the Witwatersrand Basin. So it actually is part and parcel, I guess, of this bigger story here. And I didn't appreciate that until we picked up the project and really started picking the data apart late last year.
Mm-hmm. All right, so you picked up two properties along the. So you explained really what you've seen that really caused you to be excited. Is there, given the age, is there some similarity to what took place with the conglomerate rocks at Beatons Creek? I mean, is there, it's a very unique story that you tell about Beatons Creek and the age and the precipitation of gold. Is it something similar that's going on here?
Well, I'm actually quite glad you asked this, Jay, because it is. And this is where, I'll be the first to admit it, I really needed to step back and recognize this for what it is. If you look at the model for gold deposition within the Wits Basin that I've proposed, it was really brought on by the onset of photosynthesis on Earth here. In other words, photosynthesis, say blue-green algae that evolved sometime in the Mesoarchean, really triggered the precipitation of gold. And this gold came out of seawater, as I've postulated. What I didn't realize was that the gold, that it doesn't have to be in rocks that are exactly like the Wits Basin. In other words, the Wits Basin is mainly sandstones and conglomerates. In what's called the Mosquito Creek Formation, which hosts Blue Spec, you have sandstones and conglomerates. You also have shales, and quite a bit of shale. Turns out the gold event that I talk about, this onset of photosynthesis that's triggered gold deposition, actually is recorded in this basin as well. In other words, it's not quite, it's not identical to the Wits, but the same process was active as it was in the Wits. So now that I recognize that, and I can recognize the subtleties, that the gold has simply been taken out of those metasedimentary rocks and remobilized, cooked up a bit, put into these veins, it opens up the possibility of finding a new type of ore system, but albeit associated with the same process.
I know that you talked about the conglomerate rock bed that extends some, I guess it's a couple of kilometers out deeper, but at a very gentle slope. Do you know, have you done enough work yet to have a sense of how these are orientated, how the Blue Spec Trend is orientated? Would the rocks be flat lying, or would they be more steeply dipping?
Well, it turns out that these rocks underwent a period of deformation that was after their deposition. So the sedimentary rocks that host Blue Spec were laid down in a layer cake flat fashion, so they were laid down in flat sheets. But before the Beatons Creek type rocks were deposited, the Mosquito Creek rocks, these sedimentary rocks that host Blue Spec, were subjected to deformation and even some metamorphism. They were squeezed, pushed, and buckled up, so now they're actually dipping fairly steeply. Okay.
So I guess you're going to be doing some exploration, obviously, on this, I suppose, going forward. You're looking forward to that, I gather.
Correct. So we've picked up two additional properties. Really, it forms one large contiguous land mass out in the Mosquito Creek Formation now. But these two properties are quite extensive. They host a few tens of kilometers of strike along the Blue Spec Shear. We've got two teams out there at the moment. Each team has been assigned different areas. So one's working from the east end and one's working from the west end. But basically, they're tasked with going back and forth across the structures, these shear zones that cross these sedimentary rocks, and they're looking for potential high-grade veins. We've actually collected now somewhere in the order of 300 or maybe almost 400 samples. Some of those have gone in for assay. We do have handheld XRF out in the field, so we can actually measure trace metal contents in the rocks as we're prospecting. And we're seeing a lot of very, very interesting stuff already. So we've identified rocks that have high antimony, which is associated with this gold mineralization. And we think we might see numerous targets along these structural zones that have simply never been recognized before. These don't have existing prospects. They don't have historic drilling or anything. These are brand new, previously unrecognized discoveries.
Exciting. Do you expect to have some assay results then that you'll be reporting to the public in the near future?
We do. We've actually submitted quite a few samples already. I expect to have some results back even within a week, say.
All right, good. Well, Quinton, I've been hugely excited, as you know, about the Witwatersrand target, and that's why Novo has been my top pick for sure. I've talked about it so much on this show and in my newsletter. But when I heard you start talking about this Blue Spec, it made me wonder whether there was perhaps something negative about the prospects of the conglomerate-hosted gold targets that you've spent so much time talking about, and that maybe you were putting that on the back burner. Is there any justification for that concern?
It's not that we're putting it on the back burner. It's that we still are committed to getting the conglomerate-hosted mineralization into production. Look, by no means have we stopped the permitting process and the work that's going on to push that forward. It's simply that this has added to the story. It's really a recognition on my part, just within the past few months, call it, that these rocks that are similar age to the lower central Rand unit in the Wits Basin are actually part of this bigger story. Once I realized it, I started looking at what lands might be available out there. I kind of carefully, methodically negotiated these option agreements that bring in some of this land. And it's not meant to be a distraction. It's actually meant to be additive to what we're already doing. Mm-hmm. Now, we are in the process of permitting a trial mining exercise. It has been a bit frustrating, I'll be frank, to have the process go so slowly. The mines department in Australia has put us through a fairly tight scrutiny on a number of items. They're basically viewing this test mining as more like a full mining exercise, even though it's a 30,000 ton mining scenario. But they're justified in doing so, and we are trying to address any and all concerns they have as they come up.
Yeah, I guess it's really impossible to know when you might be able to get those permits. It's just really up to the government. They can take their time, I guess.
It is. Look, we're being proactive and trying to work on our end to get things resolved. We expect to get them resolved reasonably soon. It's not as though there's a lot of conflict. It's more that they've just asked for additional information beyond what we thought the scope of the trial mining exercise would be. Mm-hmm. So they've asked for things around, fairly detailed safety management plans and tailings disposal plans and things like this that we did not expect as part of a scenario this small. But they have asked for this information, and we are trying desperately to provide it as quickly as possible. Well,
I suppose that will work to your benefit then, assuming that you decide to scale up from this 30,000 ton trial.
Correct. Yes, and in going through this extra scrutiny, they have reviewed now almost all of our existing environmental data. So the advantage we have, this has taken a lot longer than planned, but the hope is that once it comes time to permit a commercial scale mine, the mines department will already have reviewed all of this material, and it should make that process easier.
Well, in summary, Quinton, what should investors be watching for now? As what might be some drivers for the share price? We're in a bull market now. A lot of the shares are moving quite substantially. Novo is up nicely so far this year as well. But what might investors be on the lookout for?
Well, Jay, we've got the trial mine is coming up, and we anticipate receiving permits and advancing that. But we've also got now some likely very interesting results coming out of, we'll call it greenfields exploration. This is raw ground, boots on the ground type exploration out of the Blue Spec area. Mm-hmm. And I would emphasize again that this Blue Spec and associated sedimentary rock is indeed directly related to the bigger picture here. They are part and parcel of the same basin, same process that I've described. So we've got news coming in on that. We've got, like I said, nearly 400 samples, I believe, collected to date. We should have results coming out over the next couple of months on that. But then, most importantly, I have been working diligently on getting Beatons Creek to the level of a commercial scale mine. Mm-hmm. And I think I can see a path to accomplish that within this year. So I can't, make any promises or further conjecture, but I have a fairly clear idea of how we can get Beatons Creek into commercial scale production within this year.
Oh, well, it's remains a very exciting story, certainly, and one that I think everybody should take a look at. People, if you're interested in the junior mining sector, this is certainly a fascinating story, but it's a fascinating story that I believe is also going to make people a lot of money, especially if we remain in this bull market, which I think we are. To me, in my view, I think we're, based on what I'm seeing, I think this is not just a head fake, but a real deal here. And if it is, Quinton, I think we're all going to have a lot more fun this year than we've had over the past several years. So I want to thank you very much for being with us again, and look forward to keeping up with your story on an ongoing basis.
Thank you, Jay. Appreciate it.